Big mistake. So what ended up happening was the very first booking we got after we just finished renovating and fixing this property, they robbed us.
So all the new furniture, some appliances, and it was,
yeah, they took my washer and dryer, and that was in the basement of the house.
Yeah,
by the way.
well, they were nice enough to take off the doors and not scratch the walls.
They actually didn't nick a wall, which is impressive, I gotta say. But
I mean, there's silver linings with everything.
But the biggest thing, and we say, like, the main theme of entrepreneurship is you just keep going, right? So what ended up happening was everything that was gone from the house, and I literally mean like everything down to like a fork, we had everything repurchased and brought to the home within about 18 hours because we hustled. We had to. Yeah. And then in total, we were only down about 5 days from the time the event happened and when we learned about it to when we got it back up and running again. And by the end of that month, so this was October 2019, we still made more than double of what I would have made by renting it long term.
Welcome to the VIP Financial Education YouTube channel, where we help you go further, faster financially. Guys, you're going to recognize some of these folks that are going to be on the channel today. Michael and Katrina, who are the short-term rental gurus.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, Michael here, and my wife, Katrina, here as well.
Hey, guys. So
we appreciate you having us back on.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having back on the channel, and we really love connecting with you, connecting with VIP audience. So thank you so much for having us back on.
Yeah, no, of course, guys. So we've got tremendous success stories, and we're going to talk about testimonials later. We're going to drop an additional testimonial video, but these guys literally went from W-2 to now are, safe to say, millionaires. Correct?
Safe to say millionaires. Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of people are interested in short-term rentals, the VRBO, the Airbnb, what does that look like? How do you get started? How do you get out of the gate? So what we want to do is get your backstory first and foremost. If you don't mind kind of sharing where y'all came from. Obviously y'all are married. We love that. You seem happy, at least on tape. So where'd you come from? What were your backgrounds? And ultimately, how'd you get started? What intrigued you about short-term rentals?
Yeah, really good question there, Michael. So I would say our journey has been anything but smooth. Lots of ups, downs, bumps and bruises along the way. But I mean, that's all part of what entrepreneurship's all about. But I guess to kind of take things back, so before we actually got into short-term rentals, Katrina and I, we had tried a number of different business opportunities. So we had been in network marketing companies, affiliate marketing, tried Amazon FBA, actually had a little bit of success with that, but then had quite the setback with a rather large government back tax bill heading our way, which we were not expecting, was essentially folded the company. Mm-hmm. We had tried, in my earlier years, I tried writing a book that was, I thought it was quite good. Everyone I sent it to said it was awful. So I guess that kind of ended my journey being an author. We tried stock trading, option trading.
It's pretty like anything under the sun, kind of, just dabbling into these different entrepreneurial ways to make money. We kept trying it, seeing if it would work. And, it didn't nothing really caught fire, it didn't really get the momentum, get to where we were wanting to go. And it didn't really, wasn't scalable. It's like, is it scalable, location free, are able to do it in the world, like all those different, and cash flow of it, right? So all those three different elements, like we couldn't find that in the perfect business to really apply that. So when we were trying all these different ways, like it would have some of the elements, but not all three of the elements. And so that's what we were really, I guess, like waiting for and seeing like what would kind of catch on that. And for us, I mean, we did the whole work, 9-to-5 jobs, W's-2s, as you like to say. Like I was in university for 7 years, 2 degrees, Michael's got a degree, and then worked the whole, corporate world with it. And it just, for me personally, just killed me like a little bit every day at a time, just being like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like what I really want to do. I'm so capped, my income, and it was hard getting up in the morning for sure for me.
But coming into short-term rentals, so what had happened was at that time, I was actually employed with a foreign exchange company, and I was a currency trader. So that was my daytime job. And if I'm being totally honest, I actually really enjoyed what I did for a living. But again, it was just trading hours for dollars, essentially, right? So what ended up happening one day, I was driving home from work and I was listening to a podcast that had started talking about short-term rentals. And, at this point in time, I was certainly aware of Airbnb and, these different platforms, but certainly never occurred to me as, a way to make money with it. Because I had always thought that you had to own the properties in order to do it. And, unless you're fairly well endowed and have deep pockets, trying to buy properties to get into the business, it's not very scalable because you get capped out very quickly, right? Mm-hmm. But on this podcast, they talked about this idea of not having to own real estate and essentially just controlling other people's properties in order to generate monthly income.
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard the idea, it was just like a light switch went off, and I thought, like, yeah, like that just makes absolute total sense.
And so Michael came home. He's like, Kat, we can do this. Like, let's listen to this idea. Like, you can actually do this. And once, he kind of explained it to me, we're like, well, I mean, let's just try it. Like, that was the biggest thing, like proof is in the pudding. Like, let's just try it, see if it actually works, see if we can do it. And then, just experiment and see if we can actually, operate short-term rentals with other people's properties, make an income off of it, and then grow and scale it.
So we started our business back in October 2018, and our first deal was a 1-bed, 1-bath condo. So I think it was, I don't even know, it wasn't even 500 square feet. It was essentially a studio.
I think it was 460. Like, it was a tiny, like 1-bed, 1-bath studio, older building, kind of, rundown building. The place had been slightly renovated, and that was our first deal. And I think, just kind of coming back to the first deal that we've done, a lot of people that we've coached and kind of coming into this being like, well, I have to start with like a mansion or some kind of big house. I'm like, you can start small. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can start with, a side hustle of just like a bedroom in your house, right? Or a basement suite, or a 1-bed, 1-bath condo that is 400 square feet, right? Like, we had humble beginnings. It was really small. And we started with rental arbitrage, that concept of essentially renting a property. So signing a lease with the homeowner, and then from there, welcoming short-term rental guests into the space. So instead of, with traditional real estate, you're selling, the unit by a month, right? Like month-to-month rent or year rent. But with short-term rentals, you're selling it by the day.
Correct. Yeah. So with this deal, our rent on this was $1,050 per month. So it was relatively inexpensive to get into. I think our initial investment in this, including all the furnishings and everything, I think we put around $4,300, which to us at the time was a lot of money for us, because again,
we're like, oh my gosh, $4,300. This is our first deal. We're like, we better make this work.
So for that property in particular, we ended up controlling it for just a little over 2 years. So on average, we pulled in about $600 per month on that. So some months were more, some months were a little bit less, but on average, that's
net per month, $600.
So from the revenue that we pulled in versus taking all the expenses out, we ended up netting out at around $15,000 total on that for about 2 years. So for the money we put into the deal versus what we were able to take out, it ended up being an ROI of around 368%. So that was, and that, again, this is not a rock star deal. This is a pretty basic, vanilla ice cream deal. So,
but even with that, after PITI, you guys were almost 4xing monthly, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's definitely a few things we did correct in this first deal. First things first, it had low rent. Yeah. That was a big thing. So controlling your expenses, making sure it had low rent. And I mean, we did keep our costs low with furnishing it as well. So it did extremely well. It was our first deal. And so that's why, anytime we're coaching or taking someone through here, you can start small because you can still make a profit, and a pretty nice one at that, even with smaller units. So that was step one of where we started with our journey.
Yeah. So that's zoomed out. That's like the whole journey of that particular property. But earlier on, we're like, wow, this is really good. Like we're making money on a property we don't even own. So if we want to make more money, I guess we just need to go get more properties, right? So coming into stage 2, what happened was we actually grew to half a dozen doors. So we grew to 6 doors, but then we got stuck.
And this was using, guys, rental arbitrage.
Yeah. So basically what happened was we got to 6 doors, but because we were paying rent, damage deposits, and having to furnish all these places, even though when you're looking at it through the lens of real estate, although it is significantly cheaper to get into a property using rental arbitrage and that method, we essentially we're getting capped out because we had this initial outlay of cash to control a unit, but then it would take time in order for that money to come back in so that we can then go into the next deal. And it just, for us anyway, it felt too slow.
Yeah, essentially we were getting capped out because, like Michael said earlier, we had to put down damage deposit. We had the rental income over our overhead each month, and we had to pay for furnishings initially.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's significantly cheaper to get into real estate, but it still had that cash to get upfront, right? Is that upfront and then get the money back as we went through.
Now, don't get us wrong. I mean, obviously we were super excited about what
because we were still cash flow. We just had to wait for that cash to come back. Yeah.
Like on average on these deals, we started to figure things out a little bit more. We were pocketing around $1,000 a month per door.
Net profit.
So we were pretty excited because from what we were making in our daytime jobs, like it started to take off some of that pressure that, oh, what happens if, I lose my job, or what happens if, the transmission goes out in the car, just anything like that. Fear and worry started to go away when we got to this point, but we still we had larger goals in mind. So if we were continually doing this the way we were doing it, it was just going to take essentially forever to get there. Right?
Yeah.
You were going to cap out at some point, and that's kind of that get rich slow, right? And there's nothing wrong with long-term buy and holds. We're going to actually do a video coming up here within the next couple of weeks about kind of the contrary to that. So you guys recognize that and you wanted to scale. So I think number 3 is going to be kind of your scalability, if I'm not correct.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
That's a good guess.
So. That's a good guess.
Yeah.
So essentially, when we got to 6 doors, we were like, okay, so we wanted to keep growing and we wanted to get into larger units. As I said, we started small. We started with 1 bed, 1 bath. We got into some condos, some basement suites, and we're like, okay, the game changer here is we need to get into houses. So that was a big shift for us, but we, essentially didn't want to use all that capital up front, right? We wanted to, number 1, pay for the business, but get into these larger units and grow faster.
So we were having a meeting one day, and I say meeting, I mean, Katrina and I, right?
Just like this.
Management meeting. Very important, executive types. Anyways, so we were having a conversation and we said, well, look, like the way we're doing this right now, this is like, it's good. I'm not complaining, like we're making money, but this is going to take a really long time if we're to keep doing it this way. So we had a conversation. We're just like, well, it seems to be that rent, damage deposits, and furnishings, those are the 3 biggest costs to getting a unit up and running. So here's a crazy question. What if we just stopped paying for these things when we got new deals? Like, what if we actually didn't have to do any of that? And I mean, on its face, that's an insane question because it's like, well, how the hell are you going to do that? But we were committed to this idea. It's like, well, if we could actually control other people's properties without having any of that upfront investment, well, then we could grow really quick because we wouldn't be out of pocket from the initial start of the transaction. So this is when we discovered the idea of short-term rental partnerships. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the next game changer that we really came across, because it was at this time, I mean, we had 6 units, they're being profitable, but the thing is, and I mean, this is huge, and this is what we coach and train on too, is, I mean, your partnerships are like, even your landlords or any deal you get into, like treat them like gold, because you never know what deals or partnerships those will lead into. And we were getting a ton of referrals, and a lot of our students see this as well, because even in that, like when you get into real estate, people that own real estate tend to own lots of real estate or know people in real estate, right? And word of mouth can spread like fire. And that was a big thing with us, because at this point, people are coming to us and being like, hey, I heard from your partner that you were doing all this work. Like, how do I work with you? And at that point, that's when we were really able to shift and change, being like, for sure, we can work with you, but we don't pay a down payment or damage deposit. We don't have rent, and we don't pay for furnishings. And then that's when we shifted our offer to actually start having a service agreement with them and partnering with them.
Correct.
So what I'm understanding here is that y'all started with one property.
Yep.
While you were driving home from work one day, Michael.
That's right.
That was kind of your brainchild. Y'all decided to go out there and do it. You did a beta test, right? Correct. So you actually had a couch outlay there. And then ultimately it proved itself out. And then you guys had the wherewithal to ultimately try and scale that and really start thinking outside of the box as entrepreneurs while you still had your W-2, correct? So you guys were still working your 9-to-5s?
That's right. So at this point in time, so again, we got to around half a dozen units. We still had our jobs. Now, at that point, one of us probably could have left and we would have been okay. But like, truth be told, that like, again, if I'm being totally honest, I genuinely enjoyed what I did for a living, and I know it sounds weird to even say that because a lot of people may not be in a similar case, but the thing that was really starting to gnaw on me in particular after a while was like, because I worked in finance, it was long hours, like, 60+ hour weeks are pretty normal in that line of work. And I didn't see any end in sight of that because that was just the nature of the job. Right. So by this point, we were at half a dozen. We started to discover how to leverage the power of partnerships. And then this is when our business really started to take off. So,
and something that was very unique that I want to point out here as well. And it was almost amazing how we started our business with the full-time W-2 jobs, because that forced us to really think outside the box in the way of making sure that we had automations, we had the systems in place, the processes, and to be able to scale. Like, we knew we wanted to scale, but we couldn't be there in person. Like, we couldn't be greeting people. We couldn't, be sending all these messages ourselves. And so we actually had the early on mindset to make sure, like, how do we do this without doing it ourselves? Right, within our business, to make it a very scalable business, because we had those full-time jobs. So that really gave us the foundations to be able to grow and scale it as well, and take on new units without taking more hours on day to day with the side hustle.
So effectively trading time for dollars. So guys, if you're out there watching right now and you're in a W-2 position, you are looking for a side hustle, looking to get into short-term rentals, do yourself a favor. We're going to drop the link below here for the email at bnbbootcamp@vipfinancialeducation.com. Michael or Katrina or someone from their team is going to contact you immediately. Go ahead and continue on, guys.
Yeah, so at this point, as soon as we learned how to do this and really leverage the power of this concept, we were actually able to scale up. So just for a time frame perspective, so we started in October 2018 here. We grew to 6 doors.
And that was about halfway through the year.
So at this point, we were like mid 2019. It was kind of the time frame. We then scaled up to 16 units, like within the next, not even a year at this point.
So 16 units inside of 1 year.
Correct.
Yeah. So that led into 2020. Yeah. Which we all know what happened in 2020.
So what ended up happening was, so again, at this point, we were both still working our full-time jobs. But then what happened was in 2020, I ended up losing my job.
Michael loses his job.
So on its face, that doesn't sound too great, right? And it was a bit of a shock because the company I was working with, it was kind of like whiplash, because by the end of February, it was one of the fastest growing companies in all of Canada. And then by the end of March, the company went bankrupt.
Yeah. It was just, it was destroying, like 2020 destroyed a ton of businesses, right? And unfortunately, it was one that Michael had worked with. So,
yeah. So on its face, that doesn't sound like great news, but ultimately it was like the best thing that ever happened, because I realized how much time it was taking out of my day to have this job. So now that my time was freed up, I mean, at this point, again, we had like 16 units. So it's just like, well, I may be unemployed, but now I'm just redeployed into our own thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I think that was a big thing. And we didn't really realize how we had even positioned ourselves, because no one expects to lose their job. But we think about it, we're like, thank God, like we had, our full-time or a side gig happening, that it was at this level and it was able to support one of us at this time full-time.
Yeah. So things like at the household level, we're still basically the same, which was, a blessing for sure. Now, granted, at this time, we had to really readjust things with our business in order to keep the bookings in, occupancy full. So we were still profitable, not quite as much as we were in the past, but like we were still doing okay at this point.
Yeah, but that's when we really realized as well with partnerships. Number one, we could help and support more people, and we could grow and scale faster. So partnerships, not only did we scale to 16, but we almost solely focus on that because there's a few reasons why. One, it ends up protecting us for sure, because now we don't have overhead. We don't have that risk, that monthly, having to do that no matter what, and we're not paying for furnishing. So essentially we're signing a piece of paper and, we're profitable month one. Like that's a really good structure to have, especially during COVID, because what we learned about 2020 and the pandemic is you never know what's going to happen. So at least it's more flexible that you're able to, if it's a really great month, it's great. If it's not so great, like it's a profit share at that point, right? So that really shifted our focus to be able to grow and scale that way.
Yeah, and I think that's important to kind of touch on here. Guys, it's been wild over the last couple of years. So no one predicted it. No one has the kind of crystal ball on how to deal with things like this. But what you guys have shown over the last year and a half is that you kind of analyzed market conditions, right? You were able to pivot and then move your business in a direction that was supported by data, right?
100%.
So that's every business out there. So many have been shut down. And guys, we never want bad things to happen to good people, obviously. But when people can take that news and they can take the information that's coming to them, they can read the tea leaves. We often talk about this on the channel. They can pivot and kind of move their business in a different direction. Michael and Katrina are living testimonials of how to do that in short-term rentals during a pandemic. I mean, give me a break. That's as tough as it gets, right? Who's out there traveling necessarily right now or back then? You guys have done a phenomenal job, and kudos to you on that. So just want to interject real quick.
Yeah, and we really appreciate that. And that was a big thing for us, but it was also, obviously is a win-win for us, but also a win-win for our partners, because a lot of it during COVID, there was those rent moratoriums, right? Where renters didn't even have to pay rent. So by partnering with us, they have income still coming in, right? And that was the whole beauty of this, is that everyone was still not just surviving, but thriving. That was a big thing for us. So that was really important during 2020 and helping people that way.
It was actually kind of funny because when things really started to look a little bit spooky, we just kind of analyzed the situation. And I actually sent out an email to our partner saying, hey, despite everything that's going on, we are likely to see some cancellations, but, based on how the calendars and bookings look right now, like we are going to be okay. Bills are still going to be paid. And, there's really, at the moment, it's not overly concerning to us because we have some strategies on how we're going to deal with this. And it was really funny because I think we only got like one response back from the partner. And I think they just said like, okay, cool.
Okay, great.
We're just like, okay, well, all right. I guess we'll just roll with it.
I'm sure they appreciate the communication though.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. From when we started, we have yet to lose a partner because of how we're performing. That's why we said it's a win-win for everyone. And it is a really good synergy for everyone. So that's how we got into partnerships. So Michael lost his job March 2020. Yep. So this now takes us into the next big shift where we get to number 5, where I leave my corporate job. Yes. And that was in a span of less than 6 months because I left.
6 months after he lost his job, you intentionally quit yours. Got it.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So timeline on this. So this would have been October 2020. So coming up on a year ago. And basically, when I lost my job, again, I had a lot of time at this point. So I'm like, wow, this is the best opportunity ever because like
now we can really focus on growing and scaling because what else am I going to do?
Like there's no other distractions. There's nothing else that's competing for my attention. I'm going all in on our business. So because of that and of that focus, we ended up getting so busy that I said to Katrina, I was like, so
we need support.
Well, I just said like, I did the math and I said, listen, it is costing us money for you to have this job right now.
Yeah. And by that time, I believe we were at 24 units. So that was another 10 units that we had taken on from Michael leaving to then when I had left. And he's like, it's costing us for having you to go to work to do this. And
so by that, so 24 units at that point. So from start until that point, what's the time frame?
So I'm just trying to think. So that would have been, okay, so we started in October 2018. So
and then October 2020. So from, 24 units within 2 years.
24, yes, but 2 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, we always had this goal of like a unit per month, just kind of in the back of our head, like, and it didn't always work out that way. Sometimes it'd be no units, sometimes it'd be like 3 units in a month, but on average, it's pretty much been a unit per month. And that really came into fruition. It was 24 units, October 2020. Yeah. So since we had started, a big thing for us was like, I mean, it was amazing that Michael could be full-time on this, but it was amazing that both of us could now go full-time on this. So it was supporting both of our salaries and both of our lifestyles. So that was incredible. So not only did it replace one person's income, but both of ours. So in such a short amount of time, within 2 years, if you look at that. So 1.5 years for Michael, and then 2 years, we were both full-time on it. So in this relatively short amount of time for literally starting from scratch.
And I mean, we say to people all the time too, like, because sometimes people bemoan the fact like, oh my goodness, 2 years you guys had to do that. I'm like, well, listen, I mean, the time is going to pass anyway. Like in 2 years, you're going to be 2 years older than you are now. But the difference between where you are now and where you could be is simply based on the decisions you make, the actions you take, the books you read, the people you hang out with, and how you move forward in the face of adversity. Right? Because all this all sounds really appealing, of course, but like we said earlier, we've had a lot
of ups and downs throughout the whole journey. I know this is looking very straight line right now, but it wasn't at all.
What were some of those humps that you guys had to overcome along the way?
We can just give a couple examples just for the sake of time. So, I mean, when we launched our very first unit, what ended up happening was because we didn't really understand entirely what we were doing, we actually didn't even get a booking for the first like 2 weeks and not even an inquiry. So it was just like crickets.
We're like, what did we just sign up for the next year? Because we did a year lease with this homeowner, and we had no inquiries, like no messages. Like we were freaking out. And so, I guess common to the theme of pivoting, like we just shifted our strategies, right? Like, we just kind of, instead of just giving up, I guess, and walking away from this, we just shifted and we're like, okay, let's really learn and figure out. So we figured out our own pricing strategy to, really mitigate that, making sure we had traffic coming in, who we were attracting. Like we literally formulated our own strategies and game plan, which all has come into now our coaching program, which, it's just been incredible and game changing, not only for us, but all of our students. So a lot of people ask, they're like, how did you come up with these strategies? And I'm like, trial and error, right? That's what we've done for 2.5, 3 years. Right. So
yeah, like we were talking about earlier, when we first started, we had some of the puzzle pieces, but not all of them. Mm-hmm. So the additional ones was just time in the field and, figuring things out just through direct experience. So, I mean, that was not such a great start. I guess another story that comes to mind. So when we're actually on our 12th property, this is actually my old property I used to live in, and it had a long-term tenant in it. So again, place was trashed when she moved out. So we actually had to invest of around $30,000 in repairs, renovations, fixes, and then also just buying the furnishings for the property. So what ended up happening was, so this property was like totally dilapidated, and it took us about 3 weeks to get it from—
I think it was actually 2. It was crazy.
Might have been around 2 actually, yeah. That condition to getting it listed to be a short-term rental. So, and then we took off to Hawaii because we were just like dog tired.
We were dog tired, yeah.
So the first inquiry, the first booking rather we get is a 2-week booking, and it's like more than I would have made by renting the property out long term. So I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing, except didn't do any screening. Just
like I said, challenges that we've now learned.
Big mistake. So what ended up happening was the very first booking we got after we just finished renovating and fixing this property, they robbed us.
Mm-hmm. All that work, the very first guest robbed us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the new furniture, some appliances, and it was,
Yeah, they took my washer and dryer, and that was in the basement of the house, by the way.
Well, they were nice enough to take off the doors and not scratch the walls.
They actually didn't nick a wall, which is impressive, I gotta say. But
They couldn't scratch the walls. Yeah.
I mean, there's the silver linings with everything.
But the biggest thing, and we say, like, the main theme of entrepreneurship is you just keep going, right? So what ended up happening was everything that was gone from the house, and I literally mean like everything down to like a fork. We had everything repurchased and brought to the home within about 18 hours because we hustled.
We hustled.
We had to.
Yeah.
And then in total, we were only down about 5 days from the time the event happened and when we learned about it to when we got it back up and running again. And by the end of that month, so this was October 2019, we still made more than double of what I would have made by renting it long term.
Yeah, guys, I think that's important to talk to the channel about here. So, guys, if being an entrepreneur was easy, everyone would do it, right? There's not a person out there that probably does not want to work for themselves, whether they're risk averse or not. You know, if you could ultimately go out there and start your own business, most people would say yes. What these guys have done is persevered as entrepreneurs. The best thing, and what we often talk about here on the channel, is that you don't have to invent the wheel. So we bring people like Michael and Katrina on here because they've been fully vetted out. We've talked to, testimonial after testimonial of people that are being very successful with their coaching model. I would rather go out and pay some money to get a coach than try and go it on my own. You guys have made, safe to say, every mistake.
And counting.
And counting.
I know I have as a business owner and entrepreneur, correct?
Well, and I think it comes down to what's the worth it factor. Really, because that all happened to us, and then we still made double of. Yes, it was a large headache, and it was learning experience, but that was the worth it factor.
All right, so I guess kind of tying everything together again. So getting back on this, so by the time Kat left her corporate jobs, this would have been October 2020. So fast forward to today,
So this is now.
So we've now done. So we're currently at 35 units, and we have now done just over $2.6 million since we began. And that's in under 3 years.
It's under 3 years since we've started. And currently we have about 8 setups happening. So the way that we're going now, on the theme of what can other people do, or, that you don't have to do it within your own business. So we have a setup team, everything where that's going. And so we have 8 units. So we're going to be at 43 within the next few months here as well.
43 units. Congratulations, guys. That's phenomenal. Let's talk about what your coaching program looks like. And look, guys, if you're already interested, go ahead and reach out to BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. Michael, Katrina, someone from their team will be reaching out immediately to you. What's the state of affairs right now? And what does coaching look like for someone that's looking to come on board? What are next steps? What's kind of that jumpstart period? How long or how soon can they expect, monetary return on investments? What does that look like?
Yeah, so currently what we're doing is we have our BNB Bootcamp masterclass for the September series. So we only accept 10 people at a time for each of these highly focused groups, because what's really important to us as coaches is not just getting a bunch of people involved, it's ensuring that the people that are coming in get the results that they want to get as a result of coming into this business.
Yeah, and a big thing for us, we've been coaching almost for 2 years now of that, and we created the BNB Bootcamp. And for us, a big thing of why we even came in, it really came to us organically. People were just getting stuck of, starting their short-term rental business, really knowing the ins and outs, because getting an Airbnb online is not hard, but really just knowing the strategies, how to be competitive, how to make it successful, that, having that touch point with someone directly to show them how to do this, That was where we come in, being like, okay, how do we actually make this a successful business where you can grow and scale it and make sure the deals make sense, and analyze them before you even get into the deal. So when someone's coming into, like, looking to come into it from scratch, like I said, we had no real estate experience. Like, you know, we had just those long-term tenants that we started not even with our own units. We started helping other landlords from scratch. We didn't shift our own units until I think deal 10 or 11. Like, we didn't even shift that over till next. We had long-term tenants, and you know, they still had their lease going.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as like what's included, you know, we call it a boot camp for a reason, because we start, the majority of people that come in that we work with, we are starting from complete scratch. So we're talking everything about how to get your business set up, how to have the right foundations in place, entity, bank accounts, setting up a website, to going out, learning how to approach people, learning how to have conversations with landlords, which properties we want to target, how we're going to successfully navigate these negotiations. Everything to getting the place set up. We have a full furnishing checklist, everything down to a potato peeler of knowing exactly what you need in order to make sure your unit is successful and gives a good experience to your guests. How to get your,
and then really from there, it's just like, how do we make sure it's a successful short-term rental? So what pricing strategies you're using, optimization, and we get to all those details of then having, you know, systems, automations, the finance component. Like, it's the full, I don't want to say business in a box, but it's really just to figure out, you know, all like the path forward and the foundations to make sure this is not, and we work with people over a 4-month period. It's not just a 4-month period and then you're done. It's like having that long-term mindset of these are the foundations so that you can really grow and scale it and even be more successful than us because you've known the shortcuts. That's our whole intent with someone coming into the program.
So
and I mean,
you're ultimately helping people kind of reduce that learning curve, helping them kind of cut those corners, and not in a bad way up front. So all the way from helping identify properties, scripting how to talk to them, how to put them under the agreement, correct?
Correct.
How to market the property, I mean, and everything in between. So you guys are holding their hand. What does a week to week look like for one of your boot camp students? So I'm starting today. What are my next steps? What does that look like for me this week or next week and moving forward?
So the biggest thing is when someone comes in, one of the very first exercises we have people do is getting really clear on exactly where they want to go and what their goals actually are. But more importantly, developing a plan of what's it actually going to take to get there. Yeah. And we're starting to reverse engineer that process.
Yeah,
right?
It's like, what's your why? Like, what's your motivation of really getting into this? But that's got to motivate you, because like I said, like, if business was easy, everyone would do it, right? So for us, it's like, you know, it's simple, but it's not easy. So we want to make sure we're able to help guide, have those foundations, but you understand, you know, your why of why you're really wanting to do this, and stick with it, because it's consistency and, you know, really going through it with the actions and taking actions and making sure you're committed. That's our number one thing.
So as far as the journey, as your question, it really, like, depending on a person, like what stage they're coming in from, but assuming someone's brand new, never done this before, we literally start from scratch. So the first weeks, or a couple weeks rather, it's just going to be really about building out that foundation so your business has the right infrastructure to sit on. And then we move very quickly. So within the 4-month program, we have a weekly Q&A call so that every single week, the students have an opportunity to interact with Katrina and myself, so we can ensure that all of their questions get answered. Mm-hmm. But by having that call every week, that enforces accountability amongst the group, that if you're going to commit to the program, you're going to show up to the call and you're going to take the actions and assignments that we're going to provide to the student on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, so you're going to get access as well to our members area that we've created. So there's pre-recorded videos. They're very detailed. They're literally like into our back end of our Airbnb, how to set these up, like really the strategies. So it's not just, you know, theory, it's the real setup of how to actually do it and take that action. Really, anyone coming into it, is our goals to, like I said, shorten the learning curve here, but you get access to everything we use in our business. Is what messaging templates we have, what systems, automations, strategies, you know, documents, contracts, like anything we use in our business. our students have access to really follow best practices so they can hit the ground running on the right foot. And they know they have that support and that structure to really go fast.
And then part of it too is after the 4 months comes to a conclusion, right from the very beginning, the student has access to a private members community. And that's only people that we've personally coached and worked with. So even after the program comes to a conclusion, they can still chime in, ask questions, get that support, because ultimately, the questions someone has when they're at deal number 6 or deal number 10 is going to look very different than when we're trying to get on first base and try to get the very first deal.
Exactly.
Right?
No, I love that. I love that community aspect. That crosstalk, people that are effectively in the same boat that you are, trying to get a business off the ground, when you can kind of interact with those folks, obviously with your guidance. That's absolutely priceless. So let's talk about the cost.
Yeah.
What
So
kind of discounts does VIP financial education get?
100%. Yeah. And we're glad you brought that up, because our whole thing is we want to be extremely transparent, and anyone that's looking to come into this, we need to make sure that there's that alignment there. And, it ticks off all the boxes for what their goals are, what they're looking to achieve, and, ensuring that, it's in alignment for where they're at, in a current financial position as well. Right. So normally our program, full disclosure, we do it for $18K US. But because of the relationship we have with you and Matt and the VIP community, we're currently discounting the program down to $12K US. So a $6,000 discount.
Which is very healthy. Obviously a 33% discount on anything. And I'm a cheap guy, so I'll take that all day long. So is that just long withstanding, or is there, first handful of people get that? I know, and guys, we always talk about scarcity here on the channel, and it is by design, because when slots are full, slots are full. So you guys cap out at 10 per month, correct?
Yes. So we cap it out at 10 per month. Right now, for the September, we only have 3 spots left of this one coming up. And then I know there's only 3 spots left for this one. And then coming up from that, we're going to have to open up our next coaching from there. So the thing with us is once it's capped off, because we are directly interactive with the students coming in. If there's hundreds of people in there, we can't be one-on-one with these students in the weekly calls answering specific questions. So that's why it's a very highly focused group and interactive. And we work together for 4 months. It's a lot, that's a lot of interaction and calls. So for us, we want to make sure it's really that close-knit group that's going in this journey and they have that direct support from us. So the next month after that, that's when we'll be, filling up the spots for the next program from there.
Yeah. But from anyone that's looking at this from the outside looking in, I would encourage anyone to go take a look at, testimonials for people that have actually come through the boot camp. I can give you countless stories and examples of multiple people within the last year earning healthy 6 figures doing this, leaving jobs, retiring spouses, supplementing retirement incomes.
Yeah, growing and scaling and having lifestyle assets. It's just incredible. And it's been, just as coaches, selfishly, just been so rewarding just to see that growth and those lives being changed. And that's when I said, if anyone's coming into this, have that mindset of commitment, but also that long-term mindset. Yes, it is 4 months, but this is a business you're building to really grow and scale it from there and be successful to really change your financial future and others around you.
Yeah, and guys, we often talk about this here on the channel. You're gonna have to invest, whether you're investing time and you're reading and you're gaining knowledge on your own for free. You can get a library card and read everything under the sun. If you're looking to get into a business, though, not inventing the wheel and following experts like Michael and Katrina, it's worth every single nickel. So when you're talking about an ROI, return on investment, for every investment dollar you put out there, if you are, and graciously they have given a 33% discount down to $12,000, guys, you can make that back in, what would you anticipate if someone were to come on for the $12,000 coaching package? What do you guys tell them? Because everyone's going to ask the same question. How soon should I anticipate getting my money back, right? Have you ever had that question?
All the time.
All the time.
It's a good, and it's a good question and a fair question to ask, because again, anyone that's looking to come into
results
this,
may vary, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And you have to, have the pros and cons with everything. But I mean, the main thing is, and we always say it depends. And when we say it depends on what properties you're going after, right? It depends on what kind of deal structures that you're doing. Like, I'll give an example. I think we've had our previous student, Nathaniel, on the channel. He went to partnerships right off the bat. So when we're doing that with Nathaniel, I mean, I think within his first 2 months, he made about...
He did $83,000 in his first 2 months.
First 2 months of our coaching. So, I mean, if you look at that, $83,000, and he did partnerships off the get-go. That's the whole reason that we're coaching and training, because what is the right fit for you, but what is the most profitable way to do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, we had another fellow, he came in, he was 19. Well, he is 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it took him a little bit of time to get his first property, because I mean, there is a little bit of in his case, a little bit more of a credibility gap just due to the age, but he was committed to it and he didn't give up. So his first month he was live, he did $22,000 in bookings, his very first month, and he's 19 years old. So what I would say to anyone that comes into this and is super committed and is willing to do the weekly assignments and really, buy in, we've had countless examples of people that pay for the program before they're finished paying for the program, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. So next question, who should not even contact you, right? Who is the wrong fit for this model? I mean, period. So do you guys at this point, you've talked to enough folks, kind of your demographic of success and failures at this point? I have not heard any failures from your team at this point. Who's not the right fit? Who should not even contact you? Save their time, stick to their W-2 or whatever they're currently doing. Who would that be? And then conversely, who should contact you? What kind of mindset are you looking for? What kind of drive are you looking for? Is there a demographic involved in that? If you could speak on that, that'd be great.
Well, I think the first thing from like a mindset standpoint is, there's a big, actually quite a large difference in being interested in something and being committed to it. So, anyone that's kind of looking at this willy-nilly and thinking like, oh, I'll give this a try, you're not in the right headspace, because again, we call it the BNB Bootcamp for a reason. You have to show up and do the work, right? It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be challenges. I mean, we're here to support that person through that journey as a coach. But anyone that's not willing to, roll up their sleeves and put the work in, do not sign up for this program.
The whole reason we have the program is to, have the steps there, but just like a health coach, it's like, you can't do the push-ups for them, right? Like someone has to do their own push-ups and someone has to take the actions here and do it. Cause it's not us, we'd rather teach a man how to fish rather than give him a fish. And that's the whole point of this, because we're teaching you the skills of how to grow and scale your business for years to come and really change your financial future. So for us, the most successful students are ones that are committed, lean on us for support when they get stuck, they don't suffer in silence, and that they are the ones that keep at it, right? And really have that commitment and that mind shift to do it.
The second person I would say should not sign up for the program is basically anyone that is jumping from opportunity to opportunity to essentially try to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
Because
next shiny object. Yep.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, I know this from experience because I did this for a number of years myself. Hence, we talked at the very beginning, trying all these different businesses. But again, there's a big difference between trying something and committing to something, right? So we always encourage anyone that's looking at, this opportunity with short-term rentals to have a long-term outlook. And that would be someone that this is for, is because what we are showing people how to do is we're showing a process that has worked not only where we live, but we have students all across Canada, the United States,
UK and Europe, like literally around the world. This is working in. Like, this is a process that can be essentially rinse and repeat it anywhere in any kind of place, right? Because that's what it is. And when we show our strategies, they're always based off of your market, your area. So it is an evergreen strategy as well. So coming into this, just having that mindset of, I'm creating a business. It's not some kind of get quick rich kind of scheme or anything like that. Like, that's what you have to think about. Yes, you can make great cash flow from this, but you have to put in that work.
Yeah, and we talk about that often here on the channel, guys. So we've got other business opportunities that we discuss on here. No one can put a gun to your head and make you get out of bed and do the work every day. What Michael and Katrina and BNB Bootcamp provide, we're going to go ahead and drop that email below. If you're interested, go ahead and email them for additional information. They provide that, like you said, rinse and repeat, right? You're plugging into a system that is already effective. It's already proven. If you want to go out there and start the next biggest business on your own, have at it, but from my 25 years worth of entrepreneurial experience, I know that it's best to follow a roadmap, a blueprint for success. That's what these guys are offering here right now. So what I'm hearing is, if you're not a self-motivator, if you cannot stick to a blueprint, if you are not coachable, trainable, this is not the right fit. And I know at this point, some of y'all's vague financials, this is not a cash grab for you guys at this point. This is more of kind of one of those things where you guys want to give back the knowledge that you guys have acquired over the last handful of years. And we always appreciate that, of course. So the people that would be a good fit, let's talk about them.
Yeah. So, people that I think, have made that decision in their heads that they want to make a change in their life, and they've really committed to that change, being like, I need to change something and I need to stay committed to that. And once they've made that decision in their head and they're ready to move forward, that's a good person coming in here. So, the majority of our students coming in are people wanting to leave their W-2s and do leave their W-2s. Like they're successful in doing so, but they've made that mental mind shift to stay committed, go with the program and keep going with it after as well. So not only, with us, they've grown up to 1 to 2 properties, but now they're at 9, 14. One of our students is literally over 30 properties. And they started with us half a year ago, and they're over 30 properties now. Like, it's incredible to see that. Like, that's what I mean about shortening the curve and just being committed and having that shift of, I need to do something else, but I'm committed to do that.
Yeah, and I think you hit a lot of the nails on the head, Michael, with just some of the different variables you were saying are important. But the 3 biggest questions we ask to people when they're looking to come into something like this is, number 1, are you coachable? Number 2, are you teachable? Because not everyone's, they might want to be coached, but they might not actually want to learn and commit to learning. But the third and final variable, which I would argue is the most important, is, are you willing to be held accountable, right? Because, as we said earlier, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And, I would say on balance, the different steps and variables and, strategies we teach people are relatively simple to do, but it's also simple not to do them. Mm-hmm. But the doing it even when you don't feel like doing it, that is the biggest difference of, people that go on, make multiple 6 figures. A few of our students, with a little bit more time, they're going to have very healthy 7-figure businesses. And, again, this is happening, and I would argue a relatively short time span. Again, we're not saying get rich quick. Our journey so far has been just shy of 3 years, but to go from 0 to 2.6 million in that amount of time, that's not a lot of time in order to do that, right?
So guys, there you have it. We've got Michael and Katrina with BNB Bootcamp. Obviously, we've dropped that email link below. If you like content like this, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe if you are not already a subscriber. If you are already, tell friends, family. We love having new like-minded folks on the channel. And of course, ding that bell. Love y'all. Thank you for joining us again today.
Thank you so much for having us, Michael. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. And thank you for having us on the channel again. We super appreciate it. And we appreciate you taking that time to meet with us and chat with us.